Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to say a couple words about the gospel, and then I'm not going to say anything else about it, because it's a good reading, but I want to spend more of our time with the Acts reading. It's fascinating to me, just as a brief aside, before I get into the real sermon, that after seeing the resurrected Christ twice, right, this is the third time, the disciples go back to what they were doing. Right, it was business as usual. They were fishermen before, they were fishermen afterwards. And on this third time, Jesus shows up on a beach, and you think of the nerve of the guy Jesus, right? I mean, these are fishermen, they know what they're doing, and he's like, no, you guys don't know what you're doing. Try the other side, right? And in a lot of ways, that's a symbol for a lot of different things. But one of them is, the way you're doing things isn't going to work. Try something else. Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? I mean, we all know that. Or if you don't, you do now. So he says, follow me. And that is sort of like an end to who they were and a beginning to who they're going to be. It took 3 times. And I don't know if you've ever talked to someone and you're like, wow, I was so clear about what I said, and yet nothing changed, right? And then you try again and try again. Sometimes it takes a couple times to get people to hear what you're saying. And apparently that's true even with Jesus after death. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Because when we have readings about the Paul story and his conversion and all that, it's just too good for me to walk by. So we're going to talk about that. So let me ask you a question. Who changed Paul or Saul's name to Paul? Who did? Paul did, okay. And what is Jesus? Okay. Alright, yeah, I'm going to say Paul did, right? And we'll talk about why that is. A lot of times we think of Paul and Saul as 2 different people. There was, the sort of like prequel to Paul is his Saul story, and then the sort of glorious story where we're like, oh, this is the guy we're like, it's Paul. It just turns out he had, like many people in the first century, a Hebrew name and a Roman name, and his Hebrew name was Saul. And when he left Jerusalem, when he was left around people who were non-Jews, he started using Paul, and that's it. And he used them interchangeably depending on who he was talking to. So just hold on to that for a second, I'll come back to it. All right, so let's start with something different. I'm in a book club in rahway, and I think I've said this before. This is my hot date night with my wife. We go to a social justice book club. There's a lot of tea. It's awesome. It's crazy. And we read this week a book that came out a couple years back called Just Mercy. Has anyone ever read the book? You read it, right? By Brian Stevenson. Brian Stevenson is a gentleman. If you're a lawyer in the room, I'm going to throw some mud your way. He was a philosopher undergrad, and he wanted to do something with himself in graduate school. And after surveying the variety of professions he might have, he landed on law school because he realized that's the only thing he could do without having any background in it. That is, he could become a lawyer without knowing anything about the law and just go to school. So he went to Harvard Law School. And when he got there, he wanted to do something with the poor and something in terms of advocacy and justice, and he found that there was really nothing going on. It was all theoretical academia, right? We could throw some mud on academia, which I won't do. But what he did do, his first year, his internship, is he went down south and started working on legal cases for people who are on death row. And he met somebody who he went in and visited somebody in death row, and the person was so excited to see him, and the only job that he had was to say that, sir, we're working on your case, you are not going to die this year. That was the message he had to bring to the individual. And the person was so happy, because he was later proved to be innocent, that he's like, I'm going to live, right? I mean, that's a resurrection story. He's been working, Brian Stevenson, with cases on death row for 30 years. I think he's cleared like 25 or so people. There's many, many more, but he's one person with limited resources and time. He's also the director of the new museum in Montgomery, Alabama, which is called Slavery to Mass Incarceration. And if you've seen pictures of like sculptures and statues of slaves, and there's like holograms and other things. It's a very powerful exhibit in a place where slavery was prevalent and the civil rights movement in Montgomery, Alabama, the bus boycotts and so forth. So the book kind of talks about his life. And one of the quotes that is t-shirt worthy or bumper sticker worthy from the book is that we are all greater than our worst mistake. Right? Can we all agree with that? So, are you greater than your worst mistake? Like, who wants to share the worst thing you've ever done? A lot of takers, huh? Well, let's just assume, for argument, Wayne's usually quick to go. You almost beat somebody to death? Okay. Alright, that's not a joke, then if we're not all greater than our worst mistake, then, we would say, well, that's Wayne, he's the guy who almost beat somebody to death. That's who you'd be for the rest of your life, right? Or if you ever told a lie. Like, my name's Carmine, I'm Carmine the liar. How you doing? Or if you ever cheated on somebody, you're like, Mary the cheater or Bob the cheater, or whatever. Like that sort of moniker that you get for your worst mistake, maybe you have to tattoo it on your forehead, for example, right? In many ways, the populations that Brian Stevenson deals with, felons, that's not true for them, right? That they are not greater than their worst mistake, for the most part, because they've done something wrong that's going to follow them their whole lives. And capital crimes and the death penalty complicates things because we say life for life, right? Which is challenging morally, right? But that's the population he deals with. So felons take this everywhere they go. If you create a felony or if you commit a felony, you have to disclose it. It may affect your ability to vote, and that's changing in some places now. But the hope for Brian Stevenson and his work and the work that he details in the book Just Mercy is that we are all greater than our worst mistakes, that we don't have to carry these things around. And this is extremely important for how we hear the Pauline story of his conversion. If you recall what Barbara Brown had read from the Acts story, is that you hear of Paul who's literally dragging Christians out of their homes, right? He presides quite literally over the death of the first martyr of the church, Stephen, right? It doesn't say that he killed him, but it seems the text implies that it was at his behest that this happened. And so you have this gentleman who not only wants to kill and drag Christians out, deliver them to the hands of the Romans, right? He's sort of an unofficial official who's policing Christians. And he's zealous and all these other things. So he's dragging them out to have them killed, or to trot them out before the Romans, or to go into synagogues and find the closet Christians who are hiding in their midst, right? That's who Paul was. He was a murderer. And yet, the church, the early church, when he goes to James, the leader of the church of Jerusalem, after he has this sort of divine vision of Jesus Christ, he throws himself at the church's feet and says, I have changed who I am. And now I believe in Jesus, and I want to be part of the forgiveness team as a part of the persecution team, right? And so because the church was willing to forgive a murderer, we now have about 1/3 more in our New Testament because Paul wrote that much of it. So our Bible literally depends on the ability of the church to forgive people, to say, you are greater than your worst mistake. Right? Which casts a sort of dubious light on how we treat people who commit crimes today. Realizing, of course, that not everybody treats criminals the same way as the United States does, treated by state or the rest of that. But that you are greater than your worst mistake. That's what grace is. And so, one thing that happens to Saul, though, is that we hear the story, we hear there's Saul, the murderer, and Paul, the apostle, right? And we've translated that into a powerful myth of conversion in our contemporary society. So you might say, I used to lie before, but now I believe in God, and now I do not. Right? I used to cheat before, and now I believe in God, or I've seen the error of my ways, and now I don't. I used to beat someone within the breath of their life, right? And now I don't, and therefore and that was the old me, but now, this is like the new and improved me, the 2.0 version, if you will. Like, all of my bugs have been fixed by the programmer, and now I'm walking the straight path, right? And the problem with that is that if you look at how Saul or Paul conducts himself, when he testifies, when he talks to people about his experience of faith, he literally says, I'm the guy that used to beat Christians up. That's who I am. Not who I was. That's who I am. And, not but I've seen that what I did was wrong. And now, I live a different life. And I think that's different than saying, that's who I used to be, but now I'm somebody else. But for Saul and Paul, that's who he is. You know, he's willing to risk telling people who he really is, what he's really done, to show them the power of what he can do now with that past. That past, who he was, he literally knows what it's like to persecute people, to murder people, to drag them out of their homes into the cover of dark and whisk them away to the Romans, to present to religious leaders in Jerusalem, I am so good at what I do, I want to take it on the road. You know, that's what he's saying he wants to do when he has this conversion experience. He's Saul and Paul always. He's not before and after. He's who he is always. And that's okay. Right? I mean, and what it says about us as human beings, as Christians, as not so quite perfected people, right? Can I get an amen to that? You guys? That's not me. But that we're always broken. And that's the stuff that God uses. You know, if we can't see the cracks in our legs, you know, then God can't fix them. And I think by proxy, God probably has a hard time working on other people too. You know, if we present as perfect, you know, what good does that do? You know, think of a story that you read recently in fiction, where everybody in the story is perfect. Does anyone want to read that story? No. Why? Because that's not you. That's not human. That's not Jesus. That's not God. But there's something about owning who we are and our mistakes and how that can change the future. As an example, I'm going to speak on the macro level, the big picture level, and then I'll try and bring it down. Let's go to Germany, right? Especially this week. Let's go to Germany. Everywhere you go in Germany, like maybe you're walking on a cobblestone walk, there's plaques. I'm going to say such and such a Jewish person was killed here, right? Or you go to Auschwitz. What's going on here? What's our past? You know, why does the culture want to lift this up? This horrible thing that happened as German people that affected the world. Why would you do that? And the reason being is so that we don't do it again. You know, never forget, right? It's not, let's forget. It's never forget, never again. No. We made mistakes, and the way that we make up for these mistakes is by acting differently now, by acknowledging what we've done. It's a confession of forgiveness, right? So when Brian Stevenson created this museum in Montgomery, Alabama, he's saying, why don't we have plaques everywhere where someone was living? And why do we not talk about this in schools? Why is this a taboo? Why are we still talking about Confederate flags? You know, like it's as if in Germany they're saying, like, we're going to hang swastikas everywhere. Like, why would they do that? They wouldn't. Right? It's the same thing. And so when we acknowledge our past, we talk about history and who we are, that creates the possibility of doing something different. Saul and Paul. You use a different name depending on where you are. If Paul needs to talk about who Saul is and who Saul dragged Christians out, he's talking about it. To say to people, and it's a rhetorical device, Paul is obviously a great rhetorician, that is, he could speak very well and draw people into what he would say, but he would say, this is what I've done. You're going to tell me you did worse than me? And look what God has done with me. So just think what God can do with you. You know, that's Saul and Paul, that's holding it together, that's acknowledging who he is. You know, that's like an analogy with Jesus would be, we say he was the crucified and risen Messiah. You can't get to Easter Sunday without going through Good Friday. Because you have to ask, why did this guy die? Right? Otherwise the resurrection doesn't mean anything. You know, it's a both and. It's a saint and a sinner. That's who we are. We're broken people because we need a God who can make use of broken people. You know, the confession and forgiveness at the beginning, although we don't enumerate all our sins, out loud, that would be humiliating, possibly triggering and all sorts of things. But what it does, it says to us as a community that gather, let's acknowledge who we are together. In a ritual way, let's all walk in this door, and instead of putting our best selves out there, let's start by showing the world how messed up we are. Every week. And that's how life is, and it's so much better. And I think that's what, when Brian Stevenson says, you're better than your worst mistake, it doesn't mean forget about your worst mistake. It just means learn from it. Think about it. And maybe ask God for forgiveness, and then maybe ask the person whom you've wronged for forgiveness. That's the hard work. That's transformation. Because forgiveness, when you think about it, it's not just about trusting, God that you'll be forgiven. It's trusting God's people that they won't hold a grudge, so that you can be who you are. You can say never again to what? It's the thing you did before. It's like Saul again. God can use me, God can use you. Truth. And that's what we want. Because God loves the broken pieces. God wrote a whole book about the broken pieces. That's us. Saul and Paul. We need both. Or we can have none. You are greater than your worst mistake. And never again. Thanks be to God. Amen.